When it comes to smaller, compact pickup trucks, Chevrolet really started to get serious here in America when they introduced the Colorado nameplate all the way back in 2003 as a replacement for the old Chevrolet S10. Now, in that time frame, the compact truck segment has really morphed into a mid-sized truck segment, which is why GMC and Chevrolet are introducing all new versions of the Colorado and Canyon for 2023. As you can see this week, we are driving the all-new third-generation Colorado Trailboss, kind of the more off-road oriented trim, but also a little bit more affordable, which is great to see considering how expensive vehicles and trucks have become in recent years. Now, obviously this week we've got the Trailboss model. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests, and at the end of this video, we're going to find out, has Chevrolet managed to make enough changes to the all-new Colorado to keep this mid-sized truck fresh? Stay tuned to find out. So before we start talking about the all-new styling with this third-generation Colorado, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, in the previous generation Colorado, Chevrolet offered a choice of 3 different powertrains, including a diesel. They've decided to go away with all of that and replaced it with one 4-cylinder with 3 different tunes. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Chevrolet engine family, you'll know this engine quite well. It's a 2.7-liter turbocharged gasoline direct injection 4-cylinder. That's right, it's a big displacement 4-cylinder that really was developed to power the much larger Chevrolet Silverado and GMC Sierra. In the Colorado, Chevrolet offers it in 3 specific tunes. However, I should point out that they've decided to go to 2 different tunes for 2024. This is technically the tune, the state of tune that is being discontinued after this year. It's known as the Turbo Plus engine, which means we have up to 20 pounds of boost pressure from that turbo, delivering up to 310 horsepower, which is the same horsepower as the high output version. It's a nice healthy increase versus 237 that you get in the work truck trim. The difference being is this model here, this engine offers 391 pound-feet of torque. The high output version that's just standard on the ZR2, optional on the other trims, makes 430 pound-feet of torque. If you're looking at the rest of the segment, this has the most standard horsepower and torque in the class, which is very impressive. Of course, I'm not counting the work truck model that offers only 237 horsepower, but still, this high output version comes standard in the GMC Canyon, which really shows that GMC and GM in general, their commitment to, the capability of this mid-sized work truck. It all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission, and this truck is either available in rear-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, or a full-time 4-wheel drive system, which is standard on the Trailboss models and, of course, on the ZR2 trim. Fuel economy on this particular version is rated at 17 in the city, 21 on the highway. GMC and Chevrolet don't quote a 0 to 60 time, but we've got our testing equipment. We can see what we'll do out in the real world here. This vehicle has a towing capacity of 7,700 pounds. This model here will carry nearly 1,600 pounds of payload in the bed, and compared to the higher trims like the ZR2, this Trailboss version is a little bit lighter. As it sits, this truck here weighs in at just over 4,600 pounds. But closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the styling of this Trailboss trim. Now, Chevrolet offers the Colorado, and I believe 6 different trims. The base is the work truck, then the LT. The Trailboss is 1 notch below the LT, so it's kind of in the middle of the trim structure. And I have to say, for a brand new truck, it is really, really cheapening for me, at least personally, to see something that's brand new with halogen headlights. It's a halogen reflector headlight, and it's standard on the work truck, the LT, and of course this Trailboss trim. You can see it's been a long time since I've seen just a regular incandescent bulb for the low beam and the high beam, and an incandescent turn signal here. If you guys want LED headlights, it's not available on this Trailboss trim. You have to go step down to an LT and add a convenience package 3, or go for the Z71 or ZR2 package. This is where the Colorado's twin sister, or the platform mate, the Canyon, comes standard with full LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. As this truck is equipped, it looks very cheap. It also has the Trailboss badge here with a lot of unpainted elements in the actual front fascia. You have the black Chevrolet bow tie emblem, the grille, of course. The Chevrolet grille is the standard stuff here, although it looks a little bit more, I guess, rugged by it being not painted. Down here, you typically would find fog lights. If you go down to a different trim or up to a different trim. The Trailboss, as you can see, is missing the fog lights because Chevrolet decided to, stick this, keep this model a little bit simpler to keep the pricing down. Down here, you can see for an off-road model, that's a little front air dam, which will get in the way when you're off-roading. You can pop that off with a few clips. And you can see here you have some front tow recovery hooks. If you need to do more serious off-roading, be sure to check out the ZR2 trim, which offers an additional inch of ground clearance. Now, compared to the standard Colorado, the Trailboss is lifted by about 2 inches. This truck has around 9.5 inches of ground clearance versus 7.9 on the base work truck. And Chevrolet only offers it in one cab configuration, so you can only get it with the 4 full-size doors, the crew cab, with the 5-foot bed in the back. This truck measures in at 213 inches long. It has a 131.5-inch long wheelbase, so it is on the bigger end, but I also like the fact that the Trailboss is lifted up to give you nearly 10 inches of ground clearance. Now, these are the standard 18-inch wheels that you get on the Trailboss. They are black finish, multiple spokes, riding on a 265 by 65 R18 Goodyear Wrangler Territory all-terrain tire. These are a 32-inch tall tire with 4-wheel disc brakes. You get an independent suspension in the front, and then you have these unpainted fender flares. The one thing I don't like about the Colorado is the badge here. I think this badge looks like an afterthought. I think it's placed very oddly in the middle of the door. The mirrors, you can see, no integrated turn signals. They're unpainted. They do fold in, and they are powerful, or they are power adjustable. But if you're looking for a sunroof, the Trailboss trim doesn't offer a sunroof. You'll have to step down to an LT trim. You can see there's a lot of black unpainted elements here along the side of the truck. And then this vehicle is built on a new body-on-frame chassis, which of course is going to give you the extra capability. It has a live axle in the back. There's a Trailboss badge back here. And then you can see on the taillights, you can see they're non-LEDs. Now, you can get LED taillights on other trims of the Colorado, but again, for some reason, Chevrolet doesn't offer the LED headlight or taillight combination on this trim. They boldly spell out Chevrolet at the back that's stamped into the tailgate. That's been a new trending thing for a lot of pickup trucks, of course. I do like the integrated steps that you'll find here in the bumper, which is nice. My tester also has the tow package along with a full-size matching spare underneath the bed. If you're looking at the cargo area, this is actually a damped tailgate, which is part of a cargo flexibility package or utility package. You can see my tester also has the spray and bed liner, which is an extra $500. I mentioned earlier this will hold up to nearly 1,600 pounds of capacity in the bed. And this also has the little tailgate function here, where you can actually store some items in here where it's also kind of lockable. This is waterproof if you'd like. You can also use this as like a cooler. This is a cool little nifty feature, which is part of that utility package that my tester has. It's missing a power outlet back here and no LED lighting, but you can get that as a dealer accessory. But overall, the 5-foot bed is certainly usable, but I highly recommend, of course, adding the spray and bed liner for additional $500. So now let's go ahead and talk about the interior of this 2023 Colorado Trailboss. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the current GMC and Chevrolet key fob that looks like it has their intelligent access. You can see it's a nice sturdy fob. It's missing a lot of buttons, however. It only has unlock and lock and panic. Obviously, there's no button here to open up the tailgate or remote start because my tester here is a very low trim. In fact, it is such a low trim on the totem pole that it doesn't even have keyless access, which means if I want to get into the truck, there's no button on the outside of the door handle here that will allow me to unlock it or lock it, but I have to basically take the key fob out and push the lock button here to lock the door and then push the unlock button here to unlock the door. So again, I haven't tested a vehicle like this without, that keyless access feature, but it kind of reminds me that not everybody, I guess, buys the trim that has all the bells and whistles on it. But opening the door, you can see my tester with that red exterior is complemented by a black interior, which kind of has like a two-tone look where it's like a black and a dark graphite gray. These are the cloth seats. These are the standard seats. You do have at least an 8-way power driver's seat, no memory seats, but you can get the company's EvoTex, which is a fake leather if you'd like. This trim, unfortunately, does not offer heated seats. You have to go to a different trim to get that, where you can actually find ventilated seats if you guys go to the highest LTZ trim or ZR2 trim and add that option package. Now, this one being a lower trim level, you can see is full of a bunch of black plastic and hard touch materials. So you can see the door panel here, all hard touch plastic, plasticky door handle. They're plasticky down here. This is where you'd rest your elbow. So very disappointed to see this is a hard touch plastic. Also scratchy and cheap over here. The window controls, they're one touch for all just down. Only the driver's side, however, is one touch up and down. So everything else is just one touch down. Down here you can see more hard touch plastic, a little bit of storage. At least the seat is a power adjustment on the driver's side. And for cloth seats, I will say they are relatively relatively comfortable. The steering wheel, what I don't like is the plastic urethane non-leather wrapped wheel. So you can't get a leather wrapped wheel on this trim. You can get it on the LT trim if you add that convenience package 3, which Chevrolet frustratingly doesn't offer on the Trailboss trim. Now getting inside, my tester with the 2-inch lift, of course, of the Trailboss trim has nearly 10 inches of ground clearance. It doesn't have any running boards, but for somebody short like myself, I can still get into this truck relatively easily as I get in and shut the door. The door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. There was a little bit of a rattle there when I shut the door, but you can see in terms of the tech, every Colorado comes standard with the 11-inch display and an 8-inch instrument panel here. If you guys go to the higher trims, you'll get an 11.3-inch display in the instrument panel, but starting the engine up, you can see start stop button is right here. And this is not a hybrid, so you don't have any kind of special non-traditional starter noise. It's just this traditional whir of the starter. And then you can see here in terms of the tech, this is their newest Google-based or Android operating-based infotainment system, the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto automatically connected. And this screen here looks fantastic. This is among the biggest in the segment. And I love the fact that even the base work truck gets an 11-inch screen. The 8-inch screen here you can see isn't as nice as the 11-inch display that you get in the higher trims, but you can kind of customize the way this looks. You can change the layout of the instrument panel if you'd like to go to a more simple display or show a traditional tach and speedo or digital speedometer. So again, that looks pretty nice and swanky, but unfortunately all the hard touch plastics here carry over onto the dashboard. There's nothing here that's soft. There's like a sea of gray plastic. That's all hard touch plastic here. It could use some more color, honestly. I mean, yes, there's, you know, gray plastic, piano black plastic, and some bright chrome trim, but everything else just looks really cheap and really like bargain basement. You can see down here, some of the plastics you can see actually got scratched up and dinged there, so that's not really a great look. And then the steering wheel, like I said earlier, cheap plasticky urethane wheel. You can't get a leather wrapped wheel. My tester is missing adaptive cruise control. It does have regular cruise control, audio controls on the back of the steering wheel. And then I can't believe this, guys, you got only a tilt and telescoping wheel. If you guys want, or I'm sorry, you only get a tilt wheel. If you guys want a telescoping wheel where it allows it to come toward you or away from you, you have to step it up to the LT or to the Z71 trim. So really surprising that Chevrolet doesn't make a tilt and telescoping wheel as standard equipment. At least a backup camera is standard. You can see when I put the truck into reverse, there's your backup camera, which offers a few different trailering views if you guys like. But if you guys want a 360 camera, that is an optional charge that my tester does not have, of course. But you can see the layout in the instrument panel here is relatively easy to use. One of the big controversies is the fact that Chevrolet moved the headlight controls from actually being a switch over here to just being in the screen, which I'm kind of okay with, because most of you need to just leave it in auto and then not touch it at that point. So I think that by them moving into the screen, it helps to save costs. And if you just leave it in auto, you're not going to be worrying about that. There's also an auto high beam control. My tester is missing fog lights, which would have a separate switch here if you guys want to access the fog lights. You can either access it by pushing the car icon, or it's always right there at the top of the screen if you want to access the headlight controls. So no big deal there. Instead, you just have one stock here for the wiper controls and for the turn signals and whatnot. My tester does have surprisingly embedded factory GPS, which I wasn't expecting considering this is the lower trim. But other than that, you can see if you want to access a few other things here, your CarPlay, your wireless hotspot, that's all over here. It's got the Google Assistant where you can, talk to the car as well. And it also has an off-road page. If you want to access the trip computer, you have to go into vehicle information and access trip here, where you can reset trip 1 or trip 2. It's now in the screen as opposed to accessing it through here. So there's a lot of changes that GMC and Chevrolet made to kind of make this truck a little bit simpler, but it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve as well. You can see it's missing a lot of toggles and buttons here because my tester is very low on the totem pole. There's no wireless phone charging pad here. On the higher trims, you have 2 USB charging ports, an A and a C. Your drive mode selector and your 4-wheel drive selector is here, where you can again switch between a normal, off-road, tow haul, terrain, and back to a normal mode. There's no sports setting. This controls the 8-speed auto. It offers a manual control there via the toggles, electronic parking brake, and then you have your cup holders here, padded center console, and if you open that up, you can see it offers a nice amount of deeper storage along with that little lid there for upper storage. The seats, as I said earlier, are comfortable and supported for cloth, but you can get their Evotex fake leather for an extra $1,300. You can see the glove box cheaply falls. It's not damped or lined with felt, but it's a bin style It offers a good amount of space. You can see there's no LED map lighting or LED ambient lighting. You don't have an auto-dimming rearview mirror as well. And then no sunroof is available on this trim, so kind of keep that in mind. If you guys want those higher features like cooled seats and heated seats, you're gonna have to step it up to the upper trim. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat, because this truck only comes as a crew cab configuration, which is great for families out there. And then in terms of the back seat, you can see all the hard touch plastic is carrying through, which doesn't surprise me. These seats themselves, they offer the ability to kind of flip up if you guys would like, which you kind of have to do it with two hands. Flip that up, you can see there's a little bit of storage, and then you have to pull this little lever here that allows the seat to come back down. You can also fold these headrests down. There's no hidden storage behind here like you get in the bigger Silverado, but there's around 34.7 inches of legroom, which is perfectly acceptable. Although, again, you'll find around 5 to 6 inches more legroom in a full-size truck. But once I get back here, you can see this is where I'd have the seat to drive. This is a pretty good amount of space for somebody my height at 5'7". No flat floor, but surprised to see that there are rear seat air vents, no USBs, cup holders here, and then no armrest here, although you do have a sliding manual window back here. This doesn't roll down like you would find in some Toyota trucks. In terms of the headroom space, you can see good amount of headroom space because of the lack of a sunroof. So overall, if you do need to use this as a family vehicle, just know that if you have taller friends or big car seats, you may want to consider a full-size truck. So here we are back in the all-new 2023 Chevrolet Colorado. As you guys know, this truck got a full redesign this year, and for 2024, it didn't really get any changes other than the ZR2 Bison trim and the deletion of this Turbo Plus engine from the lineup, where you either have the base engine output or the Turbo Max. Now, this model here is the Trailboss, which means it's based off of the LT trim, which is one notch below the base work truck trim. And for a base model, it is lacking in terms of features, or for a base model, but in terms of power, the Colorado definitely has the most standard power, at least in the more off-roady trim level class. Remember, this is something that competes along the lines with like a Willys Sport Gladiator, a Tacoma TRD off-road, a Ranger XLT with the FX4 off-road package. And with a 2.7 liter four-cylinder making 310 horsepower, the last time I 0 to 60 tested this truck, I was driving the GMC version, which did it in 7.6 seconds. This model here is about 300 pounds lighter. It does have a little bit less torque, but let's go ahead and see what we can get here. I have it in four-wheel drive auto. We'll brake torque it. Not the best sound, but 6.4 seconds is pretty quick, actually. That's like a second faster, more than a second faster versus the Canyon AT4X that I last tested a few months ago. Remember, this model is around 400 pounds lighter, but it also isn't quite lifted as high. It doesn't have these big fat heavy tires. But I have to say 6.4 is pretty impressive. This is way faster than the Tacoma, the current generation Tacoma with the V6. And again, a lot faster than the GMC Canyon AT4X. So if you go down the trim structure of these new Colorado and Canyons, you're going to get much better performance because the trucks are lighter. They don't have as much weight to throw around. But let's go ahead and just try it on this little stretch here. This is more slightly uphill, but we're not going to brake torque it this time. We're just going to floor it. So much mid-range torque with this engine. Even though it doesn't sound great, it's got a smooth shifting 8-speed, 6.75 there. That's very impressive. And that's, again, compared to the 7.1 that I got when I first tested this truck earlier this year during the first drive program. So 6.4 is speedy. This is among the quickest accelerating trucks in the segment. And it really shows you how much thought GM put into this 2.7 liter engine. It's been, durability tested to work in the bigger half-ton trucks. But in this truck here, with 310 horsepower, 391 pound-feet of torque, it has plenty of power, the most power in the segment, really, in terms of base engines. Now, they do offer a detuned version of this engine in the work truck, offering 237 horsepower, but I imagine most of you are going to get this tune here, obviously. Even though this doesn't have the full fat 430 pound-feet of torque, it still offers 391, and the mid-range is just so good. Anytime you go above 3,000 RPM, there's so much power that it just pushes you back in the seat. You don't have to rev the engine as hard, which is good because in something like the V6 Tacoma, you have to rev the engine constantly, which is why Toyota has replaced it and they've gone with a Turbo 4, just like GM, and of course just like Ford with the EcoBoost in the Ranger, which does offer, again, less horsepower versus this 2.7. Now, the Trailboss model does get a 2-inch suspension lift. It offers up to 9.5 inches of ground clearance on these 32-inch tall all-terrain tires. But you know what? It's still a relatively nimble feeling truck. And I think that's the whole point of people buying these mid-size trucks is they are considerably narrower versus the full-size competitor. And they just make them a lot easier to drive in the real world, especially if you guys need something that's not quite as big. You don't need the bigger back seat. You don't need all the additional capability. But you can see in just day-to-day driving, this 8-speed is smooth. The engine has plenty of mid-range pull, and it just feels like it offers plenty of power. Now, am I sad at the fact that GMC doesn't offer like a diesel or a hybrid option anymore, or GM doesn't offer that? Yes, obviously, but this engine is kind of like a one-trick pony. It replaces everything, and it really does give you a ton of power. But let's try it here one more time. Not gonna brake torque it, we're just gonna floor it. Quick, very, very quick, impressive. 6.47 there, so consistently fast at 6.47 seconds. And I think for most people, you're gonna find that number to be your liking. Now again, 0 to 60 times aren't the point of a vehicle like this, but it's always good for demonstration purposes because now we know this is definitely among the quickest accelerating vehicles in the segment. Now, in terms of the rest of the driving dynamics of this truck, I took this thing out on a longer highway drive, and GM has really, gotten the chassis down for this truck. It's a truck body on frame architecture with a live axle in the back, but it actually has a really good ride quality. The independent suspension soaks up the bumps. The structure feels nice and solid. The steering is, truck-like. It's a little bit slow, but it is light and it's relatively quick in its responsiveness. It's just got a really soft truck suspension. This model here lacks the Multimatic DSSV dampers, which the ZR2 version will ride even better. I think that the ride gets even better when you guys have the DSSV dampers. And in terms of the quietness, aside from the noisy engine, which is constantly making itself known, there is very little wind noise that comes in. You do hear a little bit of tire noise from the bigger 32-inch tall all-terrain tires, but these cloth seats, I'm not typically a fan of cloth. They are a comfortable seat. They are supportive. They hold me in place relatively okay for something like this. Really what worsens the driving experience is this cheap urethane steering wheel that I'm touching and all the cheap plastic materials, and the fact that this truck doesn't offer LED headlights on this trim. I really think it's a mistake. GM or Chevrolet should have offered it as an option package like you can get on the LT trim, but for some reason the Trailboss, it stays relatively basic in terms of those upgraded features. And you can get this truck with leather, the fake leather. It's called Evotex, but you know what? The cloth is perfectly fine. The leather's a $1,300 upcharge. I'm not sure if it's worth it. My tester, again, is very lacking in options. It doesn't even have blind spot monitoring. Now, it does have forward collision alert and lane departure or lane keep assist, but it's missing blind spot monitoring and adaptive cruise control. It has regular cruise control, but that's part of a technology package that my tester has had, my tester is missing, which would again drive the base price up even higher. And this is a relatively affordable truck by today's standards. Although I have to say, for over 40,000 bucks, the fact that I'm touching a plastic steering wheel and I'm sitting on cloth seats is a little bit of an insult. But let's talk briefly about the fuel efficiency, because this truck is rated at 1721 mpg, and in my week's worth of testing, I averaged around 16.5 mpg. That's around 2 to 3 mpg better versus what I got in the Canyon AT4X, which again, those bigger tires, the heavier weight, lowers the fuel efficiency. On the highway, I was able to do around 21 mpg, so pretty much bang on with the EPA's numbers. With the 21.5 gallon fuel tank, you're looking at around 370-ish miles of range on a full tank, which isn't bad. This truck, thankfully, just uses regular gas. So overall, I think that the chassis is good, the capability is strong, the infotainment system is solid, the power is great. The efficiency is meh. Really, the Tacoma, because it's a hybrid, we'll see how we're driving that truck next month in November. We'll see if Toyota is able to improve on that, considering it's the only hybrid in the segment. But overall, if you guys are looking for a Colorado, I actually might say skip the Trailboss trim and just go for an LT trim and add the Convenience Package 3, or you can also go for the Z71 trim. But just keep in mind the Trailboss is a unique off-road spec model, but until GM or Chevrolet offers this with like a leather-wrapped wheel and LED headlights and LED taillights, I may say skip it and go for a different trim level and add your own all-terrain tires and lift kit. So after spending a full week with the more modestly equipped Trailboss trim, I have to say, for a truck that is so modestly equipped in terms of tech and luxury features, I was surprisingly surprised with how comfortable this truck actually is to drive on a daily basis. The 2.7-liter turbo engine offers plenty of power. In fact, the best in terms of acceleration that you're going to find in this segment, which is going to, again, give you the confidence that you need if you actually do need to tow and haul heavy loads in this truck. The seats, even though they're cloth, are relatively comfortable. The back seats offer average legroom. Again, if you guys need more legroom, the Honda Ridgeline offers more space. You have to step up to a full-size truck to get the more space. And the tech features, the 11-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is definitely nice, but I think what Chevrolet needs to do here on the Trailboss trim is offer it with the Convenience Package 3 option package that you can get on the LT. It would be nice to see this thing available with a leather-wrapped wheel, heated seats, dual-zone climate control, and LED head and taillights. Now, of course, that's going to make the price a little bit more expensive, but I think in today's modern era, those are features that buyers just now expect, especially when you're looking at this price point. In terms of daily driving this truck, however, I mentioned it's comfortable on the road. It offers amazing off-road capability, which I had a chance to test when I did the first drive of this truck earlier this year. For a vehicle that, again, is a body-on-frame with a live axle, this thing is really easy to drive on the highway. It's comfortable. It has a great ride quality. And in terms of the build quality, this model here felt relatively solid, although there were a couple of squeaks and rattles I noticed in the dashboard when I was driving on the highway. But overall, for a truck that is a little bit more basic, it definitely was a pleasant surprise. I just think that there are a couple of features that's missing from this truck that would kind of push me to go for a higher trim, or at least go for the Canyon, the GMC version of this truck. Now, if you're looking to get your hands on the new Colorado, this has already been on sale, and Chevrolet still manages to sell a very good amount of these. Last year, I think they did around 90,000 units. When you add in the units of the Canyon, you're looking at around 120,000 units total. So again, the mid-size truck segment continues to grow. This is one of the first new entries out there. We're going to have a new version of the Ranger that we'll be driving soon, and of course the new version, the Tacoma, which we'll be driving soon as well. Now, the Colorado in general starts at just over $30,000 for a base work truck with two-wheel drive, at about $3,300 if you guys want four-wheel drive. Most of you, I imagine, are probably going to do that. The LT trim is going to give you most of the features that I think you expect, minus some of those extras that are part of a convenience package. That's going to start at around $37,000. The Trailboss trim kind of starts life as an LT, and then it adds the off-road goodies, the lifted suspension, of course, although it's still missing skid plates. That's still an additional $1,000 extra if you want skid plates underneath the truck. It's part of a factory option, but these started around $38,500. My tester with the convenience package, the bed utility package, the color upcharge, the destination charge, all in, this model here is around $41,155. So 41 grand is reasonable. Remember, the average new car transaction price is around $50,000, and don't even get me started about how expensive trucks have become. So in a world where everything's just so darn expensive, 41 grand for a brand new mid-size truck, which has nearly the capability of a full-size truck from about a decade ago, is relatively impressive. But just keep in mind that you can also spend about the same amount of money for the also new Ford Ranger, a 2023 Tacoma. We don't have pricing on the 2024s just yet. And then, of course, you could also get a Canyon for around $37,000. You're really looking at around $40,000 for one that's similarly equipped, a little over $40,000. My money, personally, would probably step it up to the Z71 trim, add the all-terrain tires that you can get, add the LED headlights and some of the extra tech features that you would probably want to spend money on. You could really get away with spending around $45,000 on a well-equipped version of this truck, but also keep in mind, if you're looking at the fully loaded ZR2s, those can easily cross over $50,000, which I tested on a Canyon AT4X, which is around $58,000, which I think that is too expensive. But this truck here, I think the sweet spot is around 45 grand. And for those of you who don't need the extra size and capability of a full-size truck, you should definitely be putting the Colorado and its sister vehicle, the Canyon, at the very top of your list. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2023 Chevrolet Colorado Trailboss. If you're also looking to see the latest vehicles I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.